Right now, we want to bring in author, economist, Dr. Art Laffer, founder and chairman of Laffer and Associates. He's probably best known for his Laffer curve and as an economic advisor to Donald Trump's 2016 presidential campaign. Dr. Laffer was also awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom last year for his work in economics. Dr. Laffer, it's so great to have you back with us here on The Income Generation.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much. You also should mention working with Ronald Reagan, which is one of the highlights of my life. But go ahead. Thanks, David.
That's right. That was back when in the era when you created the Laffer curve. I remember that all too well.
That's right. That's when it was.
Now I'm dating both of us by saying that, which probably isn't good. But
oh my God.
It's okay. I know you were, from what you said back in September, you were a little disappointed, I'm sure, with the election results. So tell us how you think that's going to affect the economy.
Well, I was very disappointed that Donald Trump wasn't reelected. I think he's one of the best presidents the country has ever had, and I think he deserved reelection. I have nothing against Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. In fact, far from it. I think they're fine people, and I think they'll do their very best to make a good economy. But Trump was a very, very special president in this country. Now, that's where I was. I was pleased with the Senate races. I was pleased with the House races. I was pleased with the state and local elections. So on balance, with the exception, and it's a very large exception, I was pleased with the elections except for the failure of Trump to be elected for a second term.
Yeah, you had said you were not that concerned about a Biden-Harris presidency, although you preferred the Trump presidency.
True.
But, you've spoken recently about, black swan events, and I wouldn't call it a black swan event, but what's the one thing economically, if you had to pick one thing that you were concerned about under this new presidency starting in January, economically speaking, what would that one thing be?
Well, that black swan event that I thought might happen has really diminished dramatically with Biden and Kamala Harris. They are two moderate people who don't have grudges against the world. They don't have chips on their shoulders. They're not going to do something really crazy and weird that would have been the black swan event. If Bernie Sanders had been elected, I thought there would have been a black swan. Elizabeth Warren, Buttigieg, all these others. But these two I don't expect it. But the real black swan event is a big tax hike and a crash in the economy, and that could happen in their second or third year in office. And that would be a really serious thing, going too far on the Green New Deal. And any of these things could could start and precipitate a black swan event, much the way it happened when Obama was elected in 2008. As Obama's chances of being president of the United States rose, the markets were crashing in anticipation of the policies they thought he would put in. By the way, the markets were incorrect on that case, thank goodness. But they were really anticipating a far more radical presidency than Obama turned out to provide.
Now, things are looking great in the economy. Back in September, we last spoke with you, and you said you thought Congress has gone a little too far with the first CARES Act. But now that some of the numbers in the economy are starting to trend in the other direction as COVID-19 infections are skyrocketing, do you think it's important now that Congress do something, and if so, what?
Well, Congress did all of they could do on the medical side in the CARES Act. That was the medical portion of that bill was wonderful. This was Operation Warp Speed. As you know, we now have the Pfizer vaccine in the market today. It's right here. We have the Moderna vaccine, I think tomorrow or the next day. We have AstraZeneca. We have a whole bunch of them coming along, Johnson & Johnson, and all of these are wonderful. The only reason they occurred was because of what was done in the CARES Act. Now, a lot of the CARES Act, I would say $3 trillion of it, $600 billion there was loans and medical stuff, but the rest of it was not helpful. The exception of raising the unemployment benefits and all that.
You said you were concerned about supporting companies that maybe should have been allowed to go bankrupt and all that.
Yeah, exactly.
Economically speaking, is there anything you think that Congress has to do now or should be doing, maybe a component of that CARES Act that you think they should do more of? We have 45 seconds left.
I don't think they need any money. I think there's still $200 billion left over from the CARES Act that they still could requisition and have to do what's necessary. So we've got plenty of money out there. I don't think we need another bill. I just want to make sure they focus on productive uses of those funds. And the medical uses of those funds is by far the most important use they could put it to. I mean, what we haven't done with Operation Warp Speed can't be done. It's of a magnitude of the whole rearmament of the United States at the beginning of World War II. It is incredible what was done under the Trump administration, under this Congress. Yeah. Sorry.
I was just thinking that when you were saying this to me, I was thinking it's just like what we did retooling for World War II. Exactly. But listen, we need to take a quick commercial break. So stay with us. We got to take a commercial break. We'll be right back. And you stay with us too. We have a lot more coming up from Dr. Art Laffer in just a moment. We'll be right back. Now we want to bring back in Dr. Art Laffer, founder and chairman of Laffer and Associates. So, Dr. Laffer, when we spoke with you 3 months ago, you said that employment is the key. And right now we're starting to see some of those employment numbers slowing down. What do you think needs to happen in order to get us back toward full employment as quickly as possible? I know vaccines, I get that, but what else can Congress do? What else can the Fed do to help that?
Well, not really much. I mean, you know, the spike in cases of COVID-19 is what's triggering the lockdowns, further lockdowns, which is stopping the economy from recovering quickly. Different governors have different policies as to how they handle it, but some of the governors like New York, Cuomo, and like California and there, and some of the other states have decided to lock down, which has stifled and has smothered the nascent recovery. But they'll get rid of that soon. Once those vaccines take place and they start opening up their economies, you'll see this country of ours just skyrocket back towards full employment.
Well, you said in a recent Fox interview, you said just that. You said you thought the economy was going to explode at some point. That wasn't the word you used, but some point in 2021. So what does that do for inflation? Does that increase your fears of inflation, or do you see it being kind of like we had for the last decade, where we have more asset inflation than we really do price inflation?
I do not think we are in it's not in the cards for any inflation that I can see whatsoever. No, I've been wrong lots of times, so there are no personal guarantees against it. But when I look at the economy coming back, if you have a bumper crop in apples, what happens to the price of each apple? It goes down, not up. If you have a bumper crop in the production of goods and services, my expectation is that will put a lid on inflation, not cause inflation. So I think the sooner we get back to full employment, the sooner we get back to economic growth, the more likely it is that we'll never have inflation.
So it's kind of hard to have a conversation about inflation without having a conversation about the Federal Reserve. So tell us, whom do you think is the right person to be in the Federal Reserve under a Biden presidency? And what do you think the Fed should be doing moving forward in order to be like Goldilocks, in order to be doing the amount that's just right?
Yeah, well, what the Fed needs to do is make sure that credit-worthy companies that have liquidity issues don't have those liquidity issues morph into being a solvency problem. And therefore, the old line of Walter Bagehot is, in times of crisis, discount freely. The Fed should be the backstop for loans in this economy to make sure that there's not a dip back down into a recession, depression, or whatever it is, and to make sure that they provide ample liquidity to keep this country solvent, that we don't let liquidity problems turn into solvency problems. That is the key role, in my mind, for the Fed. And I think they have lots of economists. Biden's team has lots of economists who would do a great job there. Jason Furman, I mean, you know, you've got Janet Yellen, you've got all sorts of economists they have who could do a great job in keeping inflation away and also making sure that the solvency issues are not challenged.
So with all the quantitative easing we've seen over the last decade, you know, has that changed in your mind? Yep. Our economic condition forever? Has it changed the financial markets forever? And if so, how?
Yeah, it has changed the financial markets, and I believe whatever forever means for a long time. I mean, we are sitting here where the Fed has now primary roles to keep interest rates very close to zero. which we did, by the way, prior to the Accord in 1951. We had it there. And historically, there have been a few times where the Fed has accommodated fiscal policy deficits to make sure that interest rates stay very, very low. And they've done a very good job of doing that. And I think that's probably the role they will fill for the foreseeable future.
Do you think we'll see negative interest rates here in the United States of America?
I don't really think so. I mean, maybe negative real interest rates and somewhat because we're keeping inflation so low, but I don't think you're going to see negative nominal interest rates in this country. And, I would think that the pressures on the Fed will be diminished dramatically in the next 6 months, let's say, when the economy starts bouncing back strongly, and the Fed won't have to worry about those interest rates as much, and will be able to be a much more normal, sort of normal time Federal Reserve Board, and I think they're quite capable of doing a good job.
Last question. I know you, again, were pro-Trump. You're not terribly disappointed with a Biden-Harris presidency, but you also said when we spoke 3 months ago that you're getting a little more defensive in your investment posture in case there was a Biden-Harris presidency. And of course, that happened to come concurrent with a vaccine, so the markets have skyrocketed since Election Day. So in the last 40 seconds or so, what's the best advice you can give regarding that for 2021 for our income generation viewers or income generation listeners?
Yeah, I think as we go along, investing normally would be fine. I don't think there's a huge bull market in front of us, but I don't see a big downturn going. And that's where I am. Now, what I thought you were going to ask me about was how do we withstand and not have another COVID-19 problem. There are some really good things the government can do to make sure. And one of them is have catastrophic mortgage interest unemployment insurance. That would be something that would really work. So it's already insured. So if we did get another downturn like the COVID-19, or we did get another one like 2008 or 2000 with Y2K, we have something in place that would mitigate that. And mortgage payment insurance for catastrophically high unemployment or just any type of unemployment provided by the private sector, I think could do a great job in keeping away any type of major downturn in the economy going forward, no matter where it comes from.
Of course, that would, depending upon how that comes out, you're right, if it's in the private sector, that could work. That could work. I guess banks would have to probably insist upon it.
Probably.
But that could actually help interest rates stay low or go low in theory because, now if there's less risk to making a mortgage loan by taking out the black swan
exactly
event,
right. Precisely.
You might be onto something.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah,
I mean, I try all my, that's all I do is think about these things night and day. That's all I try to do and think about them. And it's like unemployment insurance itself.
I got to tell you, you're a couple steps ahead of me with that one. I've never even thought about that. But unfortunately, we need to leave it there. We need to take another commercial break. Thanks so much for being here with us once again. And you stay with us. We have more coming up in just a moment right here on the Income Generation. We'll be right back.